The turn of the century was a time of fast-paced change in the world. The promise of freedom and opportunity lured many immigrants to America's shores. Settlement house workers tackled urban problems and provided desperately needed services to these new arrivals. At 18, Mary Harriman was preparing to enter Barnard College. She possessed a well-developed social conscience and was inspired one day by a lecture on the settlement work being done on New York's Lower East Side. She and her friend Natalie Henderson recruited their fellow debutantes to form a group to support the work of the settlement houses. So in 1901, the Junior League for the Promotion of Settlement Movements was born. It became the first Junior League. Junior League work soon expanded. Junior League volunteers and professional teachers went together into homes. Their visiting teachers concept was soon adopted by the New York City public school system. In Brooklyn, League members identified the need for free lunches in the public schools and successfully petitioned the Board of Education. Once again, the idea would become a model for school lunch programs elsewhere. During the second decade of the 20th century, the role of women in the public arena strengthened. Out of the settlement house movement had come a new respect for social work and for women as volunteers. As more leagues were formed and members joined, committee efforts branched out with visiting nurse programs and baby shelters, even dressmaking classes and hospital work. To keep members connected, a Junior League bulletin was created in 1911. During World War I, Junior Leagues played an active role selling war bonds. The San Francisco League formed a motor delivery service that served as a model for the nationwide Red Cross Motor Corps. The suffragette movement was also in full swing, and one league, St. Louis, was formed in 1915, specifically to support the cause. By the end of the 1910s, the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution passed, giving all American women the right to vote. As the 20s roared in, young women empowered by the vote searched for new roles. With economic prosperity, the leagues looked for ways to expand the cultural horizons of their communities. Children's theater, with early roots of storytelling in the settlement houses, was founded by the Junior League of Chicago. The idea was quickly taken up by more than 100 leagues. League membership continued to grow, and leagues voted to create the Association of Junior Leagues of America in 1921 to manage conferences and the admission of new leagues, as well as to publish the bulletin. In 1929, Ruth Pratt became the first Junior League member and first woman from New York to be elected to the U.S. Congress. She blazed the trail for many League members since, who have translated League training into local or national positions of prominence. The Great Depression of the 1930s ushered in difficult times, and the need for Junior League services rose. Leagues focused on the direct needs of their communities, whether through child lunch programs, anti-tuberculosis campaigns, unemployment bureaus, and homes for disabled children. Some leagues realized that responding to need alone was not enough. 4 Virginia leagues formed the first State Public Affairs Committee, which changed and improved the state's policy toward child foster care. At the end of this decade, the Junior League movement expanded across the U.S. and Canada, as well as into Mexico. The 1940s are indelibly linked to World War II. Canadian leagues drove in the motor corps, served in blood banks, and were the first to establish volunteer bureaus to support the war effort, an idea that expanded to the U.S., where Junior League volunteers, with their expertise in recruiting and training, were once again called upon to serve their country. Members like Ovida Culp Hobby of the Houston League assumed national leadership positions. She was tapped by Congress to help create the Women's Army Corps known as the WACs. In addition to the war efforts, the leagues created other new services, such as the very first mobile cancer clinic, which was established by the Louisville League. In the 1950s, the Junior League began to face ever more societal changes. With returning GIs and the formation of numerous new families, a home with children in the suburbs became the norm for many women. Nearly 150 junior leagues were involved in remedial reading centers, diagnostic testing programs, and programs for gifted and talented children. The Junior League of Mexico City extended its work to the blind. A visit from Helen Keller brought international recognition, and by 1962, the League had built the most comprehensive center for the blind in the Spanish-speaking world. With TV in its infancy, junior leagues were among the first to push for quality programming for children and collaborated in the development of educational TV. Junior leagues were involved in more than 300 arts projects and multiple partnerships in many cities to establish children's museums and other cultural outlets. Throughout their history, leagues have found innovative ways to raise funds to support their work. Thrift shops, follies, galas, markets, and more. Though Augusta, Georgia wrote the very first cookbook, it was with the publication and astute marketing of Charleston Receipts that the cookbook, as a fundraiser, gained a momentum that continues today. The 1960s brought everyone, including the Junior League, into a new reality. Young women were no longer expected to simply marry and settle down. Monumental shifts were at work in women's lives and dreams. The League's long commitment to the arts flourished with reading programs, art appreciation, music, and nature. Historic preservation projects became a popular community contribution. Environmental issues also became a concern. The Junior League of Toledo produced Fate of a River, a documentary on water pollution, resulting in League members being asked to testify before Congress. In the 1970s, leagues affirmed their commitment to a diverse membership by adopting the Reaching Out Statement that welcomes women of all races, religions, and national origins who demonstrate an interest in and commitment to volunteerism. Leagues expanded their participation in public affairs. Impact was a 4-year collaboration of over 200 leagues with the U.S. government to improve the criminal and juvenile justice systems. St. Louis designed teen outreach to increase graduation rates and reduce teen pregnancy. It was recognized and replicated association-wide. Leagues provided training for retirees to become community volunteers through an association pilot, Project VIE. Despite the growth of the organization, this was also a time when the role of the volunteer was questioned by women's groups who felt their fight for equal rights for women clashed with the idea of volunteerism. Association leaders went on record validating volunteerism as a significant avenue for women to achieve leadership positions. Their voices were heard. In the 1980s, junior leagues took on new and often controversial issues. Leagues helped gain passage of the first federal legislation to address domestic violence, the Family Violence Prevention and Services Act of 1984. In 1985, the Junior League launched Woman to Woman, a 3-year international public awareness program addressing alcohol abuse among women. More than 100 leagues participated. In 1986, the Junior League of Los Angeles was the first league to tackle AIDS, a daring new addition to the league's agenda. Leagues continued their work with children through programs like Project Lead, an international leadership training program for marginalized youth. This was also the decade when a former Junior League of Phoenix president, Sandra Day O'Connor, was named the first woman to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Junior League movement expanded to the United Kingdom. The 1990s was a decade of prosperity, with more women as the primary wage earners in the family, more women in business and in government. Leagues were leading the march for policy change at the top as members continued to advocate for critical issues like domestic violence with the Silent Witness Initiative. Building on environmental concerns, the Junior League of Mexico City began their country's first substantive recycling project, and they were instrumental in the passage of environmental legislation in Mexico. The Junior League of Cleveland encouraged leagues to come together, and so the association initiated the Don't Wait to Vaccinate campaign, an international awareness program to prevent childhood illnesses. The campaign was implemented by all 276 leagues. And it was in the 90s that AJLI established the Mary Harriman Community Leadership Award to recognize outstanding women who, like our founder, have made a lasting difference through their lifelong commitment to volunteerism. As we marked the centennial, the Junior League movement celebrated 100 years of dedicated volunteer service and the vital role women can play in our society. In recognition of its legacy, AJLI was chosen to co-chair the U.S. Committee in the United Nations International Year of the Volunteer. Today, as we're headlong into the 21st century, the Junior League finds itself ever true to its mission. Whether it's nutrition education programs for children, helping people rebuild after a hurricane, or teaching a whole new generation about the power of volunteering, Junior League members continue to have an impact, and we continue to add leagues to the association.